Hello and welcome to episode 51 of Hitting the Bar, the football podcast. I'm Chris Karle.
And I'm Geoff Saunders.
Geoff, it's been an extraordinary week in European football, which we're going to cover, of course. But first, your trivia question.
Right, okay. Has any team scored 6 goals in a game in all 3 of the League, the FA Cup and the League Cup in a single season? So they must have scored 6 against somebody in the League, 6 against someone in the FA Cup, and 6 against someone in the League Cup in a single season. Has anyone done it? And if so, who?
Excellent. Looking forward to the answer. Right. I don't know where to start with the European ties because every single game threw up something to talk about. But I suppose we have to start with Barcelona and their complete humiliation by Bayern Munich. 8-2, and one of the 2 was an own goal. So I'm going to start it off just by saying, Geoff, Tottenham are better than Barcelona because we were beaten by Bayern 7-2, and we actually scored both our goals, but it was absolutely abject from Barcelona.
I'm not sure what adjective to use, to be honest. I ran out of them as the game went on. I mean, I kept coming back to shambles. It was just an absolute shambles. But it reflects where Barcelona are now, not just the team, but the club itself. From top to bottom, there are shambles. We talked before here about how 11 of the 21 directors have either been fired or resigned in the last 3 years under Bartomeu. Top to bottom in Barcelona, it's a shambles. They don't know who they are or what they're doing.
The game itself, Barcelona was just completely outclassed, of course, in all areas of the park. I know you're a big fan of Lionel Messi, and of course he is the best player in the world and all those kind of things, but even he couldn't drag them screaming, as he has done for the last few seasons, drag them screaming and unwillingly to victory. This time, you know, even he couldn't do it. But the entire team were culpable, I think. Is it because it's an ageing squad? Is it because there's too many egos? Is it because they're not a team? They're not playing as a team, they're playing as individuals? And is PK right that, because he said afterwards, you know, maybe some of us have to go and I will walk if needed, because if we're not good enough, we're not good enough. They are an old squad, but the problems have been there a long time.
Absolutely right, and PK is right. One thing that was obvious watching the game was how Bayern stretched the game. Their wide players stayed close to the line all the time, and Barcelona in midfield and defence just couldn't cover the ground and couldn't make it up. Bayern were disciplined. They're very, very creative, very fast moving, but they were disciplined. They stuck to their shape. Barcelona didn't. They were all over the place. Busquets was just overrun in midfield. He had 3 or 4 players coming at him all the time. I would take him out of any blame. There's nothing he could do. You know, it's like blaming the one soldier who's fighting the rest of the army. And Messi up front was the same. But you saw every time Barcelona got the ball, them looking for Messi all the time. Look for Messi, get the ball to Messi. And Messi has been saying for 3 years now, he needs that player like Neymar, wide left, and before Neymar it was David Villa, remember. He needs that player there because there has to be more than one threat. If there's only one threat to the defence, they know what to do. Stick 3 men on Messi and say, okay, what can you do? Now, he has dragged Barcelona kicking and screaming into this quarter-final, and he did it previous year and the year before, and he won the league almost on his own. But he's been crying out in the wilderness, saying, look, bring back Neymar, bring back somebody wide left who's going to occupy defenders, and Barcelona just haven't done it. They got the 220 million for Neymar and were asked a question of how they'd spend it. One director said, well, if we spend all that money, then we should all resign. Well, they more than spent all that money on Coutinho and Dembele and then Griezmann. So they're 100 million over. So, we've seen 11 directors have gone, and they're a complete and utter shambles. There's no style. There didn't appear to be very much willingness, actually. The team that really wanted the ball were Bayern, and I think if you watch the game, when Bayern had got 4 goals, they were showing they'd taken their foot off the gas. They were saying to Barcelona, okay, if you're happy with this, then we'll just we'll take it easy to the end of the match. And then Barcelona did a stupid thing and went and scored the second goal. So Bayern said, well, if you okay, we gave you a chance, now you're going to have it. And it could have been more than 8, to be honest. They were that shambolic. It was like a schoolboy side, a bad schoolboy side.
As you say, it was almost like Bayern was saying, look, let's just wrap it up here, and then Barcelona didn't, so I told you to stay down. Like in America, don't they have some sort of rule that once you score so many that you're not supposed to score anymore, so as not to humiliate the other team? But Barcelona brought it on themselves. I think to add insult to injury, you mentioned Coutinho, who was obviously bought by Barcelona and on loan at Bayern, went and scored 2 against them. Look what you could have had. I don't know if he's the answer for Barcelona. He certainly was was for Bayern that night. But also the papers are now saying, of course, that, Barcelona are going to have a big clear out, and they're very disappointed in Griezmann. So what happened to him, do you think? Because he only thought he was a great signing for them. They spent a lot of money on him, but Coutinho didn't work out or hasn't worked out, and now they're saying Barcelona are disappointed in Griezmann.
Well, Griezmann doesn't look to have worked out at all, does he? But he remains an excellent player, one of the best players in the world, just in the wrong place at the wrong time, I think. And if they said, right, okay, we're keeping Messi, we'll keep Griezmann, we'll keep Busquets, keep Ter Stegen in goal, everyone else is up for sale, then I think that would be reasonable. And then if they spend the close season with Griezmann and Messi working together, then I think it will probably work. But, well, who can say? They need to find themselves, first of all, a very, very good manager.
That was going to be my next kind of question to you. But there's talk, of course, about Ronald Koeman, who's the Netherlands manager, ex-Southampton and, Everton. And there's talk of Pochettino, who, of course, used to manage my team, Tottenham. First of all, Pochettino said he'd never managed Barcelona, and obviously with his connection with Espanyol. And who is worthy of that job? Because it's quite a job now, isn't it, really, rebuilding that team? Because Barcelona were the feared team in Europe for years, and yet now, they can be overturned quite easy, and a bit of a laughing stock, almost.
Well, I don't think it's almost. They are. Let's be honest, they are. I think the words you used, a rebuilding job, are the key to it. They have to get a very, very good manager who has rebuilt a squad, who has built a team, and that's Pochettino. In the last 2 weeks, he's been walking those comments back and explaining why he said them. He's had dinner with Bartomeu, the president of Barcelona. So that looks quite likely, I think. What is very telling is that Xavi has been asked to take over as Barcelona manager twice in the last 9 months, and he's turned it down both times, including last week, where he said basically it's so much of a shambles he doesn't want to get involved. So he should have ruled himself out, and I think Pochettino's the answer. Get him in.
That would be a great thing for Pochettino. Fantastic job. Any manager would aspire to that. When you were saying there's a rebuilding job to do there, I always felt like shouting out, calling Sam Allardyce. I suppose maybe Pochettino is the answer, and good luck to him if he gets that job. He'll need it, first of all, but also good luck to him, because he probably deserves a top job. And despite the fact, like you say, shambles is probably the word we'll use, they're still a top team, Barcelona. They've got the resources anyway to become a top team again. But that's not the only team that fell short in Europe and surprised everybody this week. Manchester City once again failed to get into a semi-final. They think they've managed quarter-finals under Pep 4 times or something like that and not got any further. He's not got into the final of the Champions League since 2015 with Barcelona, so I think he's living on past glories a bit. But they were. You and I watched the game together. Lyon were the better team against Manchester City. He got the tactics wrong, didn't he?
It was all about the tactics, about the selection of the team, yeah. And he overthinks. Instead of setting his team out to play as his team plays, which, look at the Premier League, over 100 goals, they score lots of goals. Instead, he decided to look at the Lyon team and try and guard against their strengths. Well, without being disrespectful to Lyon, whose squad is probably worth 200 million, the £1 billion squad of Manchester City should have been good enough to win in almost any way you put them on the pitch. But to have, who did we have sat on the bench? Bernardo Silva, David Silva, Mahrez, Foden sat on the bench, and City couldn't create anything. It was crazy. You don't set up with a defensive 5 against Lyon. I'm sorry, you say to Lyon, this is us, we're good, it's your problem. But Guardiola's been doing this for 8 years now. He overthinks it, and he tries to defend too much. And his great sides all attack. Look at how many goals City scored. But that lot the other day didn't look like scoring.
You can't blame Pep for this particular incident, but it kind of summed it up. Sterling, who is a great player, missing an open goal from 5 yards out, kind of summed it up for them. But he was pretty bad on the night, and I think maybe it was the tactics that Sterling was trying to play to that didn't suit his style, or the whole team was trying to play to, but they just didn't have that bite in them that Man City have got. And like you said, they're serial goal scorers, and they didn't look like scoring. He got for me, he was overthinking it. He got the tactics completely wrong. Did he give Lyon too much respect? Lyon, I don't know where they would be in the Premier League, but maybe Lyon are sort of like Everton in the Premier League, and he wouldn't have set his tactics up against Everton in any game during the last last year, so why do it for Lyon? Desperate to win the Champions League again, I suppose, but every year falling short, because I think he does. Why change your tactics for that game? And it was a one-off game, so it was a cup game. So why not go out full-out attack? Because they were so slow.
Yes, they were very, very slow. I mean, Sterling had a terrible game, but he was receiving the ball in the parts of the pitch that he usually receives them in. And the first 9 times he got the ball, he gave it to Lyon 7 times. Won a free kick and made 1 pass to his... he had a shocking game. Absolutely shocking. The big problem with the formation is that formation can work if you've got a target man centre forward. And Mourinho proved that when he won the Champions League with Inter. He gained up front, and a big strong man, and the defence couldn't hold him. Well, Gabriel Jesus is not that. And the centre back two were quite happy to pass him around, say, okay, he's yours now, he's mine now, because there's no threat there. No threat at all. So, well, City got what they deserved, to be honest. What really, really surprised me and upset me was seeing how the City players behaved after the final whistle. This. Oh my God, this is also. How did we manage to lose this? No. What you do then is you get up and you shake hands with the opposition and you say, well played. Now, if you have played a really good game, you've put everything out on the pitch, then you're entitled to behave the way that those City players did. But they didn't do anything like that. I thought it was incredibly insulting towards Lyon, the way they behaved immediately after the whistle went. All this, it's a catastrophe, oh my God, we should... No. You were crap. Shake hands with the opposition, get your head up and behave like, I'm sorry to say this, but behave like a man.
It's funny you put it like that, because you said after the game, when the City players were being very dramatic and lying on the ground, crying and being devastated for the cameras, possibly. But when they were lying on the ground being devastated, you said, that's wrong. And I've been thinking about it since, and my thoughts are exactly the same as yours, that if they'd actually put in a shift and they should have won the game, or they came very close to winning, then yeah, you can be devastated and upset because you've lost and you can't understand why. But they should have known why, because they weren't good enough. And it's too late crying after you haven't put the effort in. And I don't think they put the effort in. But then again, nor did Pep in his tactics, so blame all round. But yeah, you're right, they should have just said, Leon, you were better than us, or we were worse than you, whatever it is, and just get on with it. But what now for City? Because Pep's been there quite a while, and it's eluding him again, the Champions League. If you'd have said to a City fan or the City board at the beginning of the season, you're going to beat Aston Villa in the Carabao Cup, the League Cup, finish second, way behind, 20 points behind Liverpool, and go out again in the quarter-finals in the Champions League, I think they would have said, no, that's a bad season.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds ridiculous for supporters of all the normal football clubs. Yeah, that was a bad season, but Guardiola was hired to win the Champions League, and he's been there 1 year longer than he's been at any other club. This is his 4th year, and in that time he's only won the league twice. So and he's won 4 cups in that time. So by any normal measure, he's been an astoundingly successful manager, except that the one thing he was brought there to do, he hasn't done. So maybe you heard it here first, maybe Guardiola to Barcelona?
Now then, that was the last place he ever won the Champions League 5 years ago, and he's proved himself at Barcelona. He knows it, he knows the club. Maybe, like we've said about other managers, Pochettino, Eddie Howe, maybe he's done and said everything he can at Manchester City. Maybe he feels it is time to move on. Like Geoff said, you heard it from Geoff Saunders first. Pep Guardiola, possibly maybe to Barcelona, because obviously, for sure, they're going to be looking for a manager. There's no doubt about that. I think maybe shock or surprise, I don't know. And something that certainly delighted you, Geoff, anyway. Manchester United getting beaten by Sevilla last night. Seville, of course, from Andalusia, where we live, the region in Spain. I thought Manchester United had quite a good game in patches. I think they were probably, if it was like boxing or something and it was a points-based system, I think Man United would have won. They were better than Seville, but they didn't put their chances away, and they had plenty of them. They didn't put their chances away. You think the referee was a bit biased. Seville scored their second goal, the winning goal, that actually came from a throw-in, which should have gone the other way. But you do feel the referee was biased. The first goal was a penalty. Fernandes, 22 penalties he scored this season. There's no other team that have had 22 penalties, let alone one player scoring all that. It was clearly a foul in the box. They brought the player down, but the ball had long gone. I'm not sure if that counts one way or another, but just tell me why you thought the referee was biased.
First of all, I don't think that was a penalty. If it had been a Manchester United player who committed the so-called foul, it wouldn't have been given. Maybe if the defender had made a second opened movement and caught the United player, maybe you can give a penalty then. But he was trying to get the ball and he was beaten, and the United player got the shot off. I don't see a penalty there. But if you give that, then a few minutes later in the other box, Pogba put two hands on the Seville forward, I think it was Banega, and pushed him over in the penalty area, 3 yards away from the referee, and he gave nothing. It was a stonewall penalty.
Later on in the game, it didn't even go to VAR. The referee waved it away. There was an alleged handball. There was a free kick for Seville, and the United defender in the wall had his back to the Seville attack. The ball, he jumped, pushed his elbow out, from which the ball bounced off, and nothing was given. However, Manchester United in the Champions League benefited from exactly the same thing on a previous game against PSG. Maybe, I don't know, maybe that the PSG one was wrong and this one was right. Nevertheless, Manchester United failed to get through to the final. They did finish in the top four. They've gone out in 3 semi-finals this season, so not a cup team then. However, what do you make of Manchester United's season then and Solskjaer? Because obviously we've got a couple of friends who are Man United supporters. One is happy with Solskjaer, one is not. What do you make of it? Has he just got a good squad and he's been lucky? Has he been saved by Fernandes, who's been brilliant?
Well, there's no question that he's been saved by Fernandes. Manchester United didn't have one season, they had 2. The first one was fairly terrible. Then they bought Fernandes and he turned it around. And let's not forget, this is a £950 million squad. That's how much they spent. So they should be at least third in the table. So you'd have to say, given the value of the squad, or let's say the prices they paid for the players in the squad, which is a different thing, then you'd have to say it's a par season. And Honest Dave thinks Ollie's doing a good job, and Franklin thinks he's not good enough to take them to the next stage. And I agree with Franklin, he's not. But he's there, and he's unlikely to be moved on for a while, and I'm happy about that. So everything really. Yeah, please keep Ollie. To summarise yesterday's game, Seville's goalkeeper is called Bono. So Bono ensured that Solskjaer's side would not find what they were looking for.
Oh dear, not you too, Geoff. For me, his tactics were wrong. First of all, again, Pogba I thought had a very average game, overhitting long passes again, and I think he brought his substitutes on way too late. I think with 3 minutes to go, and within the 6 minutes of added time, he brought on an attacking player, Igalo, and he brought on Mata. They should have been on. They were already 2-1 down with 20 minutes to go. They had 20 minutes plus 6 added on, which I don't know where that came from. They had all that time to get another goal and take it at least into extra time. And I think he brought his substitutes on way too late. It was clearly not working, what they'd been trying to do. So again, I think the manager, like Pep, culpable there for not taking them through to the next game.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And if it's not working, change it. And for penalty United, and let's face it, the only goals they've scored in the last 2 matches have been from penalties. For them, it wasn't working, so why didn't he change it? When everyone could see it wasn't working. But I'm happy that he's there, and I hope they keep him.
Okay, I want to move on now to another team that we collectively both dislike. And I'm sorry, Steve, if you're listening. I know it's your team, Arsenal, but however, we do try to find ways to criticise Arsenal, the Gunners. But they have signed Willian from their rivals Chelsea, who apparently offered him 2-year contract, was it? And the same money, which he turned down. Arsenal have now offered him, he's 32, offered him a 3-year contract, and it's £5 million per year, £5 million per year, I think, extra for 3 years. But there's a problem with this. First of all, I don't think he's worth it. But secondly, Arsenal are behaving, I suppose, I'm going to use the word immorally, and I think I'll let you explain why.
It's completely immoral to ask the players to take a 12.5% pay cut stroke deferment, whichever it is, and then buy this player and pay him an extra £5 million a year for 3 years over what he was earning at Chelsea. Now, he goes from one team to the other. Okay, increase his pay by 10% or 20% or something, but add £100,000 a week onto his 120 that he was earning before. It's extraordinary. And then, on the same day that that's announced, they announced that they're going to fire 55 members of staff. Now, the cost of these 55 members of staff is £1.75 million a year. So they're trying to save £1.75 million a year, but happy to pay one player an additional £5 million a year. It's it's beyond immoral. It's disgusting.
Yes, I have to agree, and I don't think anybody would disagree. It's just very, very... it leaves a very bad taste in the mouth because it's quite clear and obvious, the correlation. Could they not have offered, and would he not have accepted, Willian, an extra 3 million per year? And then they could have kept those 55 staff on who, let's face it, none of them are on thousands a week, let alone 100,000, 220,000 a week. They're all people... average, ordinary people earning an ordinary, decent day's, ordinary people earning ordinary wages. As you say, whatever the figure was, for 55 people over 52 weeks is not a lot per week. So, Geoff just said that it's 30,000 per year per person. 30,000 per year. So his extra 100,000 is 3 and a bit per person. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And I don't know if Willian is aware of it or been made aware of it and what he feels about that, because, I don't know if I'd have been strong enough, but I would have said, listen, I'll just take 3 million extra, and you can use that 2 million to keep those 55 staff on. And also, we don't know what those staff do, but if they're without these people in specialist areas, maybe the team will suffer and the whole club will suffer as a result of cutting these corners. So it's going to mean that he's playing in a team for a club that are lacking in certain areas because they've laid these people off.
Well, the owner's son, Josh Kroenke, who actually runs Arsenal, said at the end of the last season, we are a Europa League club on a Champions League budget. And then what did he do a couple of days after that? He broke their transfer record and bought Pepe for 72 million. I mean, it's a joke. It's an absolute joke. You cannot believe anything that these people are saying. And it's the 30,000 a year is the average of these. So there are a couple of in the scouting department who are paid significant, like a couple of thousand a week. But there are some of these people are clerks down on 15 to 20,000 a year. It's disgraceful. It is absolutely disgraceful. And having made this exact same mistake with Mesut Ozil a couple of years ago, they've gone and done it again. And up now, you mentioned Willian and what he might be thinking. Well, we do know what Willian has said. He said that he's moved because he'll get that extra year on his contract. Chelsea were only going to offer 2 years, Arsenal offer 3 years. What he neglected to mention was that would be 3 years at 5 million a year more. Now, I don't think there's anything wrong with him moving for that reason, but why not be honest about it? Why say, oh, no, it's the extra year? Crap. It's 3 years at 5 million extra a year. He's going to trouser 15 million more than if he'd stayed at Chelsea, and that's why he moved. So don't pretend anything else. And I'm just astonished at Arsenal behaving the way they are. They're disgraceful.
Yes, I have to agree with you. There's no colouring it any other way. There's no justifying it. It's a terrible way to behave. Businesses behave this way. We know that. They try to make as much money with as little expenditure and thought for the staff, obviously. And there was a rumour, at least it was in the papers at the beginning of the lockdown in the UK, that Tottenham were planning to, and strangely it was also 55 members of staff, I believe, planning to lay them off. There was an outcry from fans and I think the local MP there saying, that was a disgraceful thing to do, and they backtracked and backed down, which is what they should have done. But they didn't actually sign a player for an extra 15 million either during that time. I'm not saying Tottenham are squeaky clean, because they're far from it, and they've done some terrible things business-wise and so on, so no club is clean. But that behaviour from Arsenal, I think, and it's so obvious that it's not like they're trying to hide it or trying to cover it up or say anything. It's very obvious to everybody concerned, and it's obvious to just any ordinary person who can read that into that their behaviour is disgraceful. So I kind of hope Willian doesn't work out there. Just, serves them right kind of thing.
Do you remember all the criticism that Mesut Ozil got for not accepting this 12.5% cut? And well, he's been proved right, hasn't he? He said he wouldn't accept it because he didn't believe what the club were telling him, and here we are. The club has proved Mesut Ozil to be correct. And just for the record, Mesut Ozil was not the only Wanderers player to refuse to take the paid deferment. Wasn't the only one. There were others as well. But the Wanderers have also fired Sanlehi, who was director of football. If you remember back 6-7 months ago, maybe more, we were talking about their structure when Edu was appointed, and we couldn't see what all the three people, Sanlehi, the managing director, and Edu were doing. Well, they've decided that they couldn't work it out either, so they've got rid of Sanlehi. And when you look at the players that he's brought in, well, you can understand why he's gone. But they're going to throw in their lot with the so-called super agent Durabchian. And you look at the players he's brought in, and they're not stellar either. Willian is one of them. David Luiz Saunders is another one, and I think it's Suarez who basically is a professionally injured footballer. So he's not been stellar either. So it really is not looking very good for the Wanderers, to be quite honest. One reason why there is a difference between the Wanderers and Tottenham and their reaction to these redundancies is that Tottenham owe Tottenham Council an awful lot. Tottenham Council have bent over backwards for them. When the local MP starts saying you're not doing this, then Tottenham are very sensibly listening and walking it back.
So clubs behaving disgracefully, no surprise there. Let's move on, because there's another club that's behaving disgracefully, is Newcastle United. The bid from the Saudi Arabian consortium, or let's call them the Saudi Arabian government, with the blood on their hands and all those things that we all know, I think we were told was off. You said it was being put on hold and there was some shenanigans going on, but you've got a little bit of a story you want to tell us about the Newcastle fans and even the local MP and how they're all disappointed that this money isn't coming to the area and to the club.
Yeah, and that MP is a Labour MP, and I cannot for the life of me understand why any Labour MP would be saying what this guy is. Trying to say, oh, this is all politics, we're interested in football, but the reason that Saudi Arabia want to buy this club is to whitewash themselves. Sports washing, it's called. It is a political decision, a political transaction. This is what it is. Let's not pretend it's anything else. And for Newcastle fans to say, oh, we are going to ignore the human rights abuses and the dreadful, disgusting way that the Saudi Arabian government behaves towards its people, and just say, oh, that's nothing to do with us. We just want the football. They want lots of money spent on their football team. And they've invented this idea that somehow the public investment fund of Saudi Arabia was going to regenerate the area. This is all nonsense. The only people to mention investment in the Newcastle region is Staveley, and she said it, but no Saudi people have ever said they're going to invest in the region. It's all nonsense. And for these people to be completely ignoring the human rights abuses I just find extraordinary. There was a podcast last week on the Guardian about this, and the sister of one of the human rights activists who is currently in prison in Saudi Arabia. There's been no trial of this person. Initially they denied that she'd even been arrested, and the human rights groups have finally got access to her, where she's been beaten, tortured, raped. For what? What did she want to do? She wanted human rights groups to have a conversation with the Crown Prince about human rights in Saudi Arabia. Not proposing revolution or anything, just have the conversation. And for that, she's been arrested, beaten, tortured. There should be no discussion about this at all. The point you alluded to earlier on is, in the 1930s, the most famous footballer in Europe was the captain of France, who was called Alex Villaplan. And in the first World Cup match in 1930, he captained France against Mexico. He was a playboy and everyone in France loved him. 14 years after that, he was found guilty in a court in Paris in 1944 and shot by firing squad, because when Germany invaded, he saw which way the wind was blowing and he joined the Gestapo. And in the Gestapo, he committed some terrible atrocities, and then he founded the Brigade North African, the BNA, and they were given uniforms and funding by the SS. This is what the prosecutor at his trial said. They pillaged, raped, robbed, killed and carried out the most awful torture and executions. In one case, they selected at random 2 farm workers in a village in Perigord, where the BNA went in looking for a Jew who was reputedly hiding there. They took these 2 farm workers at random, beat them senseless, poured petrol on them, set them on fire, and then shot them as a warning. This was what they were doing for years. They left fire and ruin in their wake. A witness told how he saw with his own eyes these mercenaries take jewels from the still twitching and blood-stained bodies of their victims. Villaplan was in the midst of all this, calm and smiling. He was seen shooting people dead, not just giving the orders, but happily carrying them out. Quote, cheerful, almost invigorated, one witness said. That was the description of him. After his trial as a member of the Gestapo, he was shot dead. But Newcastle fans would be happy if he played for them.
Yes, that's the point, isn't it? That's as long as he scores goals and gets them into Europe, they would wash their hands of his actions, and I think that analogy between that Nazi murderer, rapist, and Saudi Arabia taking over Newcastle is very apt, Geoff, and a lovely bit of history there for us, lest we forget, as they say. These things are still happening, and these people are trying to take over a football club, so not to be taken lightly, and I think people need to understand these things. On to more pleasant things, I suppose. We've got some games this week, the semi-finals in the Champions League and the Europa League, and then the finals coming up. 2 French teams and 2 German teams, I believe, for the first time in the semis of the Champions League. Lyon take on Bayern Munich, and Leipzig take on Paris Saint-Germain. So what do you think the outcomes are going to be? Who's going to be in the final, and how many will Bayern Munich win the final by?
I think Bayern will win the final 3-1. But what we've seen over the past few days is that, anything can happen in the next half hour, as you used to stay in Stingray. So I don't know. I mean, it should be something. It should be 3-1 to Bayern in the final. But as we've seen in the last few days, anything can happen. You have to take your hat off to both Lyon and Leipzig for getting this far. In Leipzig, especially since their main striker Timo Werner had been transferred to Chelsea before the start of these final few matches. So they're still doing incredibly well without their best player. So if it was a Leipzig-Lyon final, it'd be thrilling. It'd be fantastic.
Unlikely, but it would be lovely. We're recording this on a Monday, and this gets released on a Wednesday evening, so we can't really do any predictions for Inter Milan. We're going to say Milan will get through that. That's the Europa League semi-final. Man United lost the first, so that'll be possibly Inter Milan against Seville in the final of the Europa League, which takes place on Friday. And we think Bayern Munich will get through against PSG. Do we think against PSG and they'll win 3-1? All right, that's how we see that one. And so PSG and Bayern Munich in the final, with Bayern Munich beating PSG 3-1. That's what we think anyway. Before we say our goodbyes, time for Geoff's trivia question and the answer.
Okay, the question was: has any team scored 6 goals in a game in all 3 of the League, the FA Cup and the League Cup in a single season? And the answer is yes, someone has, and it was, have a guess.
Got to be Man City. They're the ones that score the goals.
Absolutely right. And it was last season, which means it was 2 years ago. In the 2018-19 season, Manchester City scored 6 against Southampton and 6 against Chelsea in the league. They hit 7 against Rotherham and 6 against Watford in the FA Cup. If you remember, the 6 was in the FA Cup final. But even better than that, they put 9 past Burton Albion in the League Cup, and for good measure, 6 against Shakhtar Donetsk and 7 against Wolfsburg in the Champions League.
That's almost a full complement then. League Cup, FA Cup, Premier League and Champions League. 6 goals, or in fact in some cases more. Up to 9 was it? Got against Rotherham. That is amazing. Manchester City, great at scoring goals, not great at getting to semi-finals. That's all we've got time for. We'll be back next week. I'm Chris Karle.
And I'm Geoff Saunders.
And that was Hitting the Bar, the football podcast.